All right, it's time for lunch. We've already got our dinner cooking in the crock pot. We did the roast out of the Against All Grain cookbook from Daniel Walker, so that'll be yummy tonight for dinner. But now we gotta go do lunch. And the kids, they don't normally eat this because they're fussy about which vegetables they eat. I pretty much like all the vegetables. So they just had their standard, nuts and cheese and fruit for lunch, and some vegetables that they like. So I'm cleaning out the fridge, and this is something I do probably at least once or twice a week. I kind of call it like a paleo hash for lunch. So it usually consists of some sort of bell pepper, cauliflower, or some kind of a squash, any sort of leftover meat. So I've got some uncooked turkey bacon here. We had chicken satay yesterday, so that's a little bit of the leftover chicken. And then anytime I have extra zucchini or anything from a recipe, I grate it and I freeze it. And then when I defrost it, I squish out all the water. And then it actually kind of adds, like, this is going to sound strange, but sort of like a creamy element to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just put the oil in. I'm going to start getting that turkey bacon nice and crisp. So let's see how it turns out. It's different every time. It's something that you just kind of learn what you like and play around with it. And if it doesn't turn out great, well, it's usually at least edible. So let's get the heat on. You can use, something other than coconut oil if you don't love coconut. You can use olive oil, butter if you want to use that, or ghee, macadamia nut oil, avocado oil. It doesn't really matter, just some sort of fat. And then we're going to put the turkey bacon in. And this is also about the time that I actually add my seasonings. Today, I don't know, I'm kind of in the mood for chili powder, so I'm going to put in my chili powder. It's not hot chili powder, just give a little extra flavor. It's good on its own. I've made this camping sometimes for myself and my husband, and we didn't add any seasonings but salt and pepper. It came out just as tasty. Sprinkle a little salt on there, and we're just going to let that fry up. So we'll wait for that to fry, and we'll come back and show you how I cook the rest of it. Alright, the bacon's at about the point where if I'm cooking an uncooked meat, I'm ready to add the cauliflower or the squash, anything that's going to take longer to cook. So we're going to go ahead and add the cauliflower in. This way it'll have a chance to get a little crisper and brown on the outside, which that's the way I like my sauteed cauliflower. So I'm going to put that in. That chicken is uncooked, so it's already cooked, so that's going to go in the very, very end, because it basically just needs to be warmed through since that's leftovers. So I'm just going to stir that in. Get the cauliflower coated with some of that grease and oil. Trying not to scrape my favorite cast iron pan. The other spoon I normally use is in the dishwasher right now, so I'm stuck with this handy little gadget, which I do love. All the thing on the jig. So I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit so I don't burn everything. I like my cauliflower a little bit smaller, so that's some bite size. Alright. It's getting cooked up nice. Hear it sizzling away. And I'm going to let that cook for a couple of minutes until the cauliflower is basically al dente. So it's got that little bit of a bite in it, but it's soft enough that you're not crunching away while you're trying to eat this. So we'll check back once it's ready to add all the other ingredients. All right, so it's been about 2 minutes. The cauliflower is, I'd say, about 2/3 of the way of where I want it, so it's definitely got some resistance when you try to cut it in half. And that's the point where I add in any kind of bell pepper that I have, anything that's got a fair amount of water in it that needs some time to cook down. So we're going to go ahead and add in the bell pepper. Like I said, you can do this with any kind of vegetable. Sometimes I do it with cabbage and, peppers, excuse me, and onions. So my favorite is really the bell peppers, the cabbage, the bacon, and the zucchini, and any kind of other leftover meat. I don't know why, but that's just my personal preference. So we're going to let those peppers cook. Nice and sizzly. Alright, so this is the point where I turn down the heat to about low, medium low, depends on your stove, but then I cover it. I don't add any water or anything, I just cover it. And if I'm just making this for one person like I am today, it usually takes about 2 minutes to soften the vegetables to the point where I like them. If you want something a little bit more cooked, maybe go 3 or 4 minutes. And if I'm doing a large batch of this, for my husband and I, or if it's for the kids, a lot of times they're happy with eating like parsnips, cabbage, bacon, and whatever leftover meat we have, and we mix that in, and they like the hash that way. So if I'm making a big batch like that, it will take longer. So it just depends on how much volume of food you actually have cooking in the pan. So we'll give that about another 1.5 minutes, and then we'll add in our zucchini and the leftover cooked chicken. Okay, we've taken the lid off. Peppers are just the way I like them. They're not, super soft, but they're not hard. So we're going to add in that cooked chicken since it really just needs to be warmed through. And then we're going to add the zucchini. And like I said, this is zucchini that I had made some bread and I had a little extra zucchini left over. And so I just froze the grated zucchini, and you can see there's still a little bit of water in there. But for the most part, when you defrost it, the water it's usually to about here for a cup. I just drain out most of that water and kind of squeeze it out. A little water is fine. So we're going to dump this in. You can really hear that water content squeezing in. And if it looks a little dry at this point, feel free to add a little more of your oil or whatever fat you're using. But this looks pretty good for me. And you can see what I was saying about how it's almost like you're adding cheese when you use that grated squash. It reminds me of when you make like a hash in the morning with eggs and cheese. You see how it's pulling, like it's almost creamy, like melted cheese. And I really love that about this. It makes me feel like I'm eating cheese without eating cheese. And cheese just swells me up. I don't know if it's the dairy or the sugar or the salt, but it's just not my friend. So try to steer clear of it. Except for my birthday, of course, you gotta have ice cream. And once in a while in the summer when Dairy Queen's just calling your name. But for my day-to-day, try to avoid it. So here you go. So there it is. Let's plate some up so you can see what it looks like on a plate. But that's about the portion I would use for one person. It is fairly filling, but it's mostly just vegetables, some meat, a little bit of fat, and some seasonings. So there you go. It's just a quick paleo lunch with things that you probably have in your refrigerator right now. It took us about less than 12 minutes, and we got a nice, hot, healthy meal. So, hope you enjoy it.